As you know, one of the issues that comes up in this discussion of Book of Mormon geography is the location of Cumorah itself. There's the Hill Cumorah in New York, but the predominant LDS scholars today don't believe that's where the final battles of the Nephites took place. Instead, they think that hill is down in Central America somewhere, presumably southern Mexico. It's what's called the two-Cumorah theory. In other words, there was Cumorah in New York where Joseph Smith received the plates from Moroni, but that wasn't really the Hill Cumorah that's in the Book of Mormon, because that's not where the final battles took place. At least that's what the scholars want you to believe. So this theory of two-Cumorahs arose in the 1920s. And it was from scholars from the Organized Church of Jesus Christ of Latter-day Saints that came up with it. And gradually it was adopted and reinforced by LDS scholars. Well, in 1936, I think it was, Joseph Fielding Smith had been the church historian for many years and an apostle for 20 years, and he heard about this speculation about the location of the Book of Mormon. And I'm going to read something here out of this little book, Letter 7, that I wrote about the Hill Cumorah. This is an excerpt from his comments. Now, he republished these comments in the 1950s when he was president of the Quorum of the 12 Apostles in a book called Doctrines of Salvation. It was also published or printed in the Church News in 1954. February 27th, 1954, it was published in the Church News. So I'm just going to read parts of it. It's titled, Where is the Hill Cumorah? Speculation about Book of Mormon geography. Within recent years, there has arisen among certain students of the Book of Mormon a theory to the effect that within the period covered by the Book of Mormon, the Nephites and Lamanites were confined almost entirely within the borders of the territory comprising Central America and the southern portion of Mexico, the Isthmus of Tehuantepec probably being the narrow neck of land spoken of in the Book of Mormon. This theory is founded upon the assumption that it was impossible for the colony of Lehi's to multiply and fill the hemisphere within the limits of 1,000 years. Moreover, they claim that this story in the Book of Mormon of the migrations, building of cities, and wars and contentions preclude the possibility of the people spreading over great distances, such as we find within the borders of North and South America. This modernistic theory of necessity, in order to be consistent, must place the waters of repudiated and the Hill Cumorah someplace within the restricted territory of Central America, notwithstanding the teachings of the Church to the contrary for upwards of 100 years. Because of this theory, some members of the Church have become confused and greatly disturbed in their faith in the Book of Mormon. It is for this reason that evidence is here presented to show that it is not only possible that these places could be located as the Church has held during the past century, but that in very deed such is the case. It is known that the Hill Cumorah, where the Nephites were destroyed, is the hill where the Jaredites were also destroyed. This hill was known to the Jaredites as Ramah. It was approximately near to the waters of Repudiated, which the Book of Ether says, by interpretation, is large to exceed all. Mormon adds, and it came to pass, we did march forth to the land of Cumorah. We did pitch our tents round about the Hill Cumorah. And it was in the land of many waters, rivers, and fountains. And here we had hoped to gain advantage over the Lamanites. The early brethren locate Cumorah in western New York. It must be conceded that this description fits perfectly the land of Cumorah in New York, as it has been known since the visitation of Moroni to the prophet Joseph Smith, for the hill is in the proximity of the Great Lakes and also in the land of many rivers and fountains. Moreover, the prophet Joseph Smith himself is on record definitively declaring the present hill called Cumorah to be the exact hill spoken of in the Book of Mormon. Further, the fact that all of his associates from the beginning down have spoken of it as the identical hill where Mormon and Moroni hid the records must carry some weight. It is difficult for a reasonable person to believe that such men as Oliver Cowdery, Brigham Young, Parley P. Pratt, Orson Pratt, David Whitmer, and many others could speak frequently of the spot where the prophet Joseph Smith obtained the plates as the Hill Cumorah and not be corrected by the prophet, if that were not the fact. That they did speak of this hill in the days of the prophet in this definite manner is an established record of history. Oliver Cowdery places Cumorah in western New York. The first reference of this kind is found in the Messenger and Advocate, a paper published by the Church of Kirtland in 1834 to 1835. And here he quotes from Letter 7, which hopefully by now everybody knows. President Smith goes on to talk about how the prophet approves Oliver Cowdery's views. The quibbler might say that this statement from Oliver Cowdery is merely the opinion of Oliver Cowdery and not the expression of the prophet Joseph Smith. It should be remembered that these letters in which these statements are made were written at the prophet's request and under his personal supervision. Surely, under these circumstances, he would not have permitted an error of this kind to creep into the record without correction. President Smith goes on to point out that the letter 7 was republished again in the Times and Seasons, which was edited by Joseph's brother Don Carlos at the time. He talks about David Whitmer's testimony to the Hill Cumorah. I've put that in a different podcast, so I won't repeat it here. What President Smith didn't apparently know were two things that we found since in the Joseph Smith papers. One is that after Oliver Cowdery's letter 7 was published in the Messenger and Advocate, he directed his own scribe to copy it into his journal as part of his story. So Joseph clearly endorsed it. On another occasion, in 1841, I believe it was, or 1840, Benjamin Winchester asked Joseph Smith if he could reprint the articles again in the Gospel Reflector. And Joseph Smith told him, by all means, do that. So he did. Benjamin Winchester published letter 7 and the other letters in the Gospel Reflector, which was a newspaper in Philadelphia. So in the days of Joseph Smith, everyone knew that the Hill Cumorah was in New York. It wasn't questioned because Joseph had endorsed the location. And there's other reasons to corroborate that as well, which we'll discuss in a different